Let me give you a quick overview of what we're about to do. So I mentioned that last week in my stream that I wanted to do a mock penetration test. So you can find all the resources that I'm using down in the description below. I think most of them are free. I didn't pay any of them, so not sure what's going on. And I'll quickly give you an overview of the setup that I'm using, and then we'll get right into the penetration testing. All right. Okay, so for this to work, I have my Kali machine in VMware, which is a hypervisor that allows you to activate virtualization. Now, the nice thing about that is that you can have virtual machines in your virtual machines. It's like Inception, but with computers and more nerdy. So the way to set up this Metasploitable 3 environment is you need Vagrant and VirtualBox. You can find both of them in the description, so you can install it and follow along if you want. And then you have this Vagrant file and you just call Vagrant up. I already did that to save us some time. So let me show you quickly that I'm running VirtualBox inside VMware, and here we have a vulnerable Ubuntu machine and a vulnerable Windows machine. All right, then let's go on to the next topic. I have these two machines running, and I also have already installed OpenWAS, which is a vulnerability scanner. Okay, now I think it's not called OpenWAS anymore. It's called Greenbone Security Assistant. You can find the link in the description. It's a free vulnerability scanner. I don't like it as much as Nessus, and I've also gone ahead and already done the scan of the machines, so we don't have to wait like an hour for it. And so we can just dig right into the exploiting phase and such stuff. Then obviously my virtual machine is Kali. Kali, so it has a lot of stuff already installed. It comes with a variety of tools. To be honest, it's not my favorite OS, but it's kind of like a tool that's very useful as penetration tester because it comes with so much stuff already out of the box and saves you some time because you don't have to install everything by hand. I have Obsidian running with 2 windows, which is a very nice, how do you call that? Text editor for Markdown. I once saw it in a John Hammond video and I thought, whoa, that looks very cool because you can open a graph if it works, and then you have kind of the connections. If you can link your documents and headings to each other, and then you can see the connections in here. So for example, if I want to see, oh, what's all in reference to cross-site request forgery, and then I have, oh, okay, course, some general tools, cookies, and HTTP requests. So that's something I might have to look into when I look into cross-site request forgery. The same for XSS, and also like for the SCOP, which is the thing that has the CVSS scoring system. So on this window, I have kinda my cheat sheet, which contains all the information that I've learned so far and actually written down, because I haven't written down everything so far. So this is just like a quick cheat sheet, helping guide. If I, for example, if I don't know, okay, what vulnerability should I test next for, I can just go to web, check out, okay, we have CSRF, we have HTML injection, we have XSS and other injection. Okay, SQL injection is not in here, but that's something I would never forget. Then we also have some more notes about general tools, what the tools do, and tools are nice and all, but they won't take off all the work from you. So you still need to do a lot of stuff. I mean, otherwise, why would they pay a penetration tester to do this stuff if the tools do everything? A lot of those are also for free. There are of course some paid things like Burp, but Burp also comes in a community version, but we'll get into that later. In the Pentest Plus section, I have all the things related to Pentest Plus. So you'll see me switch around in the cheat sheet from time to time to kind of find my way around this Metasploitable thing. All right, then the second instance of Obsidian is our report. All right, let's start with our mock penetration test. And the first thing I want to take a look at is the report. And I know the report is supposed to be like the last part of your penetration test. You can make your life easier if you have kind of an outline for your report ready when you start testing. And the reason for that is if you have an outline ready, especially the findings heading, I mean, we don't have to make much the methodology. We don't have to have a real outline there if we just going to find a way in, so to speak. So there are different types of pen tests. I mean, there are some pen tests where you just try to get any way in, doesn't matter. There are pen tests where you basically test everything possible in the given time frame to give like an overview of what would be possible, and a couple of others. I'll do a video about it in the future. All right, so this structure more or less is what I've worked with previously at my previous job, but very simplified. Of course, we're not gonna do a real big report. We're gonna do like a mock report, which is smaller and not as extensive. But what I wanted to do is give you a quick overview. So we have the executive summary, which is basically the high-level management explanation, which is mostly one page and just tells the management, the team, and whoever reads the report an overview of the state the system is currently in regarding security. So for example, things that are in here are suggestions what they should do and what you think of their system, but as nicely said as you possibly can. So for example, if their entire system is complete garbage, you of course don't write in here your system is complete garbage. You could write something like your system lacks the needed security hardening measures, whatever. You just try to be nice because we're professionals after all and not just script kiddies. So what I like to do is to add the conclusion as a subheading in the executive summary, or at least after the executive summary instead of the end of the document. And this may seem weird, but let's take a look what else comes into the executive summary. So there are things like the scope of work, which basically tells you what was tested, what was not tested. Contract and legal stuff is sometimes also in here, and then sometimes also the used methodology, which basically outlines the steps that we're gonna do, which we're also gonna do in this mock penetration test, except for the scoping phase. So we have like, maybe we will put an image in here put image in here, which contains the phases, which is number 1, scoping / planning the pen test. This is the phase where you talk with the clients, and most of the time you don't do that as an employee because you have other people doing that for you. Now let me take a quick glance at my notes so I don't forget any step and make a complete fool out of me. We also then have reporting, and yeah, that's basically it, reporting. So the most standards follow this way, these phases, whatever you want to call it. So CompTIA suggests this. NIST has a similar one. I think SONS has one that's more extensive, but in the gist is the same, which is this one. So back information gathering is like Nmap scanning, vulnerability scanning, OSINT and such stuff. We won't get into OSINT because obviously there is not much OSINT to do on a virtual machine that runs inside a virtual machine in your local network that is not from a client. But we can do port scanning and then vulnerability scanning. The vulnerability scan I've already done because it takes a lot of time, so we don't have to wait for that. And then we'll go into the next phase, which is attacking and exploiting. This is the fun part, or as Anakin would say, this is where the fun begins. So this is the phase where you take the information from the information gathering phase and find the vulnerabilities and say, okay, so this vulnerability could be used to enter into the system and do some remote code execution. And then I could chain that with the bind shell or reverse shell, and then I could connect. And so you basically outline your path and then attack the system, and you pivot according of how everything works out. And in the end, there is the reporting. As said, the reporting is in the end, but I like to do it at the same time because it's just easier like that. When I find something, I can just insert it into the document and it's already there. And at the end of the engagement, you just need to make it look good and add maybe some more explanations. In the conclusion, you say something like, your system sucks, but in professional manner. Suggestions on what to fix in what order. So chances are in your findings, you will have a couple of findings and vulnerabilities. Some are of course more critical than others, and in this phase, in this conclusion parts, you first say what the general state of the environment is, and then you tell them what you will suggest based on the findings and the state of the system environment. This could be something like fix all vulnerabilities with a rating of high and higher, or critical and higher. And fix, so usually you would write something like fix that XSS and that RCE first, and then fix like the certificate misconfiguration, and if you have time, fix like the info or low critical ones, if at all. And the methodology is where we paste all our notes into, and then at the end try to order it. Obviously, if you do a real pen test, try to automate as much as possible, have templates ready, have scripting stuff going on that does half of the work for you, because otherwise it's just gonna be tedious. So before we start in, a quick note: why do we even write a report? It's obvious. The difference between science and just goofing around is writing stuff down. So that's what we're gonna do. All right, so let's zoom in on the browser. I hope that's enough. And let's actually start with the engagement. So the first thing you wanna do is actually create a directory. I went on and already did that for the mock pen test. So we can store all our data inside of here. Then obviously your client will give you the IP he wants you to attack, or the host name, and you can find out the IP. For us, it's a simple IPA, and then checking out this subnet with the VirtualBox network in it, and then we can run nmap. Now what we first want to do is an SN scan, which, if I recall correctly, is a scan that will give us the hosts, and then we can search for network hosts. Oh, we want to output this in all formats and call it network hosts. And now we let it run. Enjoy our coffee. Oh, it's already done. So what I find weird is that we have the 1 and the 3. So maybe we can check out what this one actually is. We can do that with SV. Just checking the what are they called? The version and all the TCP ports. Then we want to find out what OS it's using, what versions they're using, and then the IP, and we maybe want to do it aggressively since we're not caring about being detected by a sysadmin. And of course, we want to output it somewhere. This time we can call it network 1. Does that make sense? Yeah, let's call it 1.scan. Now, of course, we need root privileges for fingerprinting the OS. So let's use them. Hey, Cliff. Say hi to Cliff. Can you see? He's a little bit shy. So usually when you do a pen test, this would be like a perfect time to maybe go back to your report and I don't know, if you've already written some things, you can like improve them or write down the boring stuff of the executive summary, except for the conclusion, prepare some stuff. Or you could, for example, just go and do some manual stuff, like let's check out what's actually at this IP. So we already can see that there is no port 80 running here. It's not much, but it's honest work, as you would say. as the young guys would say. And look at this. What is happening here? Okay, this is my payload. I uploaded already. Why are you hating cats? My cat is sitting here somewhere. Yeah, you can see his fur, but not much more for now. Okay, so we've already discovered a finding. This is a directory listing. So what you can do then is go to the mock pen test, and in the findings, I mean, since we're waiting for the scan anyways to finish, or is it done? It's done. Okay, so we can see, let's actually first do the finding and then come back to this scan. In the meantime, we can start the next scan, which is on the other host that we found, and we call this 3. The naming is 3 because of this 3, not because of some magic reason. Then we can let this run in the background and go back to our report, and then we can already create like vulnerability, affected host apps, explanation, dangerous implication for the company. And I mean, obviously I'm now doing everything by hand, but you want to automate as much of this process as humanly possible, because it's a tedious thing. Nobody wants to do it, so just automate it. It's easily automated. If you're using Markdown like I am, you can use something like R Markdown, or just use your Python skills to automate stuff some way. If you're using Word, you can write a Word add-in with C#. And yeah, so okay, we have our first vulnerability, which is, I think it's called directory listing. Let's take a look at the cheat sheet. Do I have anything in here? Of course I don't. Let's say directory listing. Yeah, it's called directory listing. Woohoo! Cheers. So we can already write direct. Let's copy this one. And this, guys, it's why you want to automate as much as possible. Directory listing. Affected host, this one. Explanation. Let's skip that for now. Damn, I'm a professional. All right, so I mean, we can preview it for now. It's not that much. It's not really that exciting, but we have that to keep in mind. We have some directory listing over here. I mean, that's not just useful for our clients or for your clients or the clients of the company you're working for. It's also useful to us, because I mean, when we will come to this next week, we will have some vulnerabilities in here which we won't have explained in the methodology, and then we know, okay, we could take a look at that actually and maybe exploit it as well. All right, let's take a look at this one. This looks like it's run through as well. Okay, what was 338 again? Okay, so the SSH port is already running on a wrong port, or a non-standard port, and we have pro FTP, we have COPS, and a closed port over here, which means that usually a firewall blocked the access. So the nice thing is, if it's closed, you can fingerprint the OS better. It didn't help us very much in here. The OS is something between Linux 3.2 and 4.9, which is pretty old, so we're usually, maybe we'll be able to perform a dirty cow exploit, and maybe in here we can play around with SSH. So you're already seeing what this information gathering phase is useful for, because now we can already have some ideas on what we can do to enter these hosts. Okay, so then obviously one of the next steps after you've done this host discovery at the beginning and some fingerprinting, banner grabbing, whatever you want to call it, it's a good thing to do a vulnerability scan. I've gone ahead and already done that scan because it can take up a lot of time. I'm not too familiar with OpenWAS, to be honest. I've used Nessus in my time, but what I know is we have a list of severities. I mean, the information ones can be important for us because it can give us more information about the system. But what we really want to take a look at is this ones. And as you can see from the purple links, I've already took I already took a look at it. So we have this Drupal coder remote execution. We have this pro FTP mod copy unauthenticated copying of files. We have SSH brute force logins with default credentials. We have HTTP dangerous methods, FTP brute force logins reporting, and Drupal core SQL injection vulnerability. So we have a bunch of stuff going on in here. We have some medium vulnerabilities as well, like unprotected web app installers, information disclosure vulnerabilities, vulnerable cipher suite, an XSS vulnerability in jQuery, 2 times even, weak encryption, TCP timestamps, and weak Mac algorithms supported. So, and this Mac doesn't refer to your Mac machine. This is a, what's it called again? It's something that has to do with cryptography, not with the MAC address of your computer. So this is already a ton of information we can use for our penetration test. And then we can put the OpenWAS scan report, something like to do OpenWAS scan report, which we can then add in here and make it look kind of harmonic to the rest. But we've done a little bit of information gathering. Obviously, in a real engagement, you would do a little bit more. You would also most of the time have more hosts to look at, and you would have OSINT and other stuff going on, which we all don't have in here. Sorry. So what do we do next? Obviously, we want to have some kind of outline of our mock penetration test. And we can, for example, write it down in the methodology, and then we can take a look at what are... Oh, nice. It's almost like a tiling. Come on. Okay, perfect. It worked out in the end. Sorry that this font is so small, but I honestly have no idea how to make the font bigger in here. Sorry. But this one should be the readable part. Now we want to attack the host, gain persistence, and then pivot from there. So once we attack like this host, we can maybe use that to be in the internal network and attack other hosts. Okay, so let's take a look at what we have here. So first we wanna go for the high rated ones, and what's also an important fact is go for the ones you actually know how to do. That's often overlooked. And then there's another one which we can actually put in front, which is like information gathering. So check info vulns first, because now we can like see the remote host implements TCP timestamps and therefore allows to compute the uptime. We could use that to find out if how long the system has been up. And if you see that the system has an uptime of like 2000 days, then you know for certain, especially if it's a Windows server which needs a reboot after patching, that it hasn't been patched and is therefore vulnerable to like eternal blue and that stuff. And okay, so I've already checked those out, and the way I usually look for this is we have some vulnerabilities here, and what we have to do now is match these vulnerabilities with exploits. How do we do that? We use a tool called MSF console. Alright, MSF console, for those of you that don't know, is basically a tool that anybody can use to hack. It's perfect for script kiddies and pen testers alike. So let me tell you what show you what I mean by that. We can look at, for example, this one, because this is something I think maybe this could work. Also, it has a CVE. So that's always a big plus, because you could go and check out the CVE and what it does, etc, etc. Or you could like search CVE and then the CVE number. And then we find a module, which the name is exploit Unix FTP prot mod copy exec mod copy command execution, which is very nice, because not only is it for our vulnerability, this exploit allows us to have remote command execution, one of the most dangerous exploits, attacks, payloads, whatever. Also, you could, this number in here, this is the CVSS rating system. I would take a look at that if you're interested in this type of things, because the base vector as well tells us a couple of information. AV is the attack vicinity, I think. Access vicinity, something like that. Access vector, which is network. Network means basically we can access this over the network. AC is complexity. L means it's very low, so everybody can exploit this. AU stands for authentication. Let me take a look. Yeah, I'm rocking this. AU stands for authentication, and N means none. So this means we don't need any authentication. We can do this over a network, and it's easy as hell. And this is what is the impact. And we have C, which stands for confidentiality, and C, which stands for critical. Then we have I, which stands for integrity, is also critical or complete, one of those two. And A is authenticity. So we can change data, modify data, read all the data. We can do basically everything once we exploit this one. So what do we do? Oh, what do we do once we actually find this module? Well, we can just use this. See here, the rank is also important when you're doing an actual test. Excellent means it's easy to use this module, and it will most likely not crash the host you're attacking. If you see something in the region of normal or lower than that, it could actually crash the host you're attacking. So you want to make sure you don't use those, or at least discuss this with the client you're attacking. So we type in use and then the exploit. Perfect. Then we have to see what payloads we actually have. I need to make the thing bigger. Show payloads. So the exploit is basically the entry point, the door opener, and the payload is then the grenade we toss in. So maybe we can go with something like this one. Generic command execution. Why not? Set payload generic. And now we can show us the options. Okay, no, this is not what we want. I want the reverse shell. That's the better option. And so now we need to configure a couple of things for the exploit to work in the first place. And so first of all, we don't have a proxy in place, so we don't need to do anything here. We want to have the remote host. Now, one downside I found with this greenbone thing is I'm unable to find where the host information is. Oh, this also has corresponding vulnerabilities, which we can look for. Yeah, so what's the host? Host 1, thank you. But which host is it? I might just be dumb, but I mean, we can very easily guess which one this is. It's the one running the web server. We found a web server on this one, so let's actually set it to this one. Okay, so first we need to set the exploit target, which is set target 0, because there is just one. Sometimes there are more. Then we want to set the remote host, the R host, set R hosts. Is it the plural? Yes. To the, not this one, to the IP of the web server. And we need our local host, set L host, which will be our host. And we can then again show options. Now, but if you've been working in web development or IT in general for a while, you know that usually the site path is not in var www, but it's actually in set site path var www/html. Okay, so we fixed that one. And I think we're ready to run it. We can then just type run, sit back, relax, and boom, we got a shell. Host name, Metasploitable 3 Ubuntu. Ta-da! We're in! That's perfect. So we should establish some kind of persistence. And since we're already on the host, we can do this in a couple of ways. We can place in a reverse shell, which we can then use to connect to us every time. I think we could even, if we now have this payload on the server, so we could actually access it here. And I know this doesn't look like a lot, but if we were to open a netcat or something like that that listens to the port 4444 on our current machine, we could have a second shell open, but we cannot bind to the same port 2 times. All right, So we already have some kind of persistence on the server thanks to this payload, and we can access it every time we want. But that's not enough, because if we type in who am I, we are www.data. Maybe it's as easy as just typing su. Must be run from a terminal. Okay, so that's not it. Now, there are a couple of ways we can elevate our privilege. If you remember from our vulnerability scan somewhere, we have SSH brute force logins with default credentials reporting. So we could use this one and just crack it with something like THC Hydra. Or we could just we may want to screenshot this or copy the input and output and then put it in our report. So we can just, I don't know, maybe copy everything, Control C, go to our mock pen test, and in the methodology we could then add RCE, remote code execution. Then we add a code block, bash 123, and we have like a perfect step-by-step guide for the people reading the report, how we attacked it. We then can, of course, add this one to our findings over here. Why isn't it in the table? All right. And we do remote code execution. And then we could write something like vulnerable FTP blah blah see open was report. Fantastic. Okay, so now we want to elevate our privilege. So how can we do that? Uname A. So we get all the information, and this is the kernel version that's used. If you remember, in the beginning the nmap scan didn't give us the version. We could take this version and basically in the report have a list of hosts and then have like host 1 versions blah blah, something like that. All right, and now what we could do is something like a word list attack. Now we could use this SSH method, which would mean that we run an online brute forcing attack, or we do something much simpler. Let's go to the mock pen test. Let's create a directory pos. Let's create a pos.vid file and cut it set pos.vid. Now this may sound like it's the password because it's called pos.vid, but it actually isn't. It's just some other information. Don't ask me why it's called password. I think in the olden days it was used for the password, but we need a shadow, which is in the same directory, and it's just called, oh, I don't have the permission. Now that's interesting. So my goal was to actually get the permission to read that file so that we could crack the system. Also, a little Easter egg. Look how all the users are called: Leia Organa, Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, R2-D2, C-3PO, Ben Kenobi, Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker, Jar Jar Binks, blah blah. It's all Boba Fett. Sorry, this was an important one. It's all Star Wars characters. Okay, so now you see a little setback, but we are not gonna cry. We have other methods. I mentioned something about some THC stuff. What's that all about? It's Hydra. I already prepared the command, because that's actually how I wanted to try it the first time. The IP should be correct. Let's take a look at the IP. Make sure we have it in our host files. Isn't that perfect? Now what we're performing is a dictionary attack. I have a full password course. You can find it somewhere on my channel. It's a paid one from EC Council that explains all these methods. This is basically an online cracking, so we're gonna do a lot of noise in the network. If possible, you want to not do that and instead crack it offline, but we do not have the option to do that in here, so we're stuck with online cracking. I think let me actually check up on the syntax again. Here it is. L single user password perfect. Is it big P? Yeah, they're even using RockQ as well. Nice. Okay, and we can run this one, and it's gonna take a while, so I'll say let's do a quick break and I'll be back soon. All right, I'm back, and the cracking didn't go as expected. Let's consult our scan. So actually, I am dumb because the SSH one is on this one. Oops. So you always have to calculate your fuck ups in these things. Maybe we also need to set a custom port S. Why the hell is S the port? Where? No, what task file? Let's remove that. We are on a completely new host, Hydra. What the hell? All right, let's try that one again. I mean, it said, come on. Come on. I think I can just refresh and the session should be updated. Oh, come on. SSH brute force logins with default credentials reporting. I mean, that's not really a CVE. It's a family brute force attacks. Actually, brute force and not wordless attacks. So maybe that's the issue. But why the hell don't I have any hosts in this report? This is useless. As you can see, it's doing basically nothing. I'm also confused because the scan didn't find so much, because actually there's a ton of stuff going on, so maybe I might have done something wrong when I spun up the server. But nevertheless, we still have a shell, and I mean that's at least worth something, right? Was fixed in October. Hey, we got something. So let's see. Check if your system is vulnerable. Let's just run the dirty cow exploit. So first of all, do we have access to the... Yes, perfect. Okay. Then let's go into the dump directory because everybody can write in there. Let's do a test. Okay, perfect. What's all that stuff? What is this? Sometimes you just have to play around in the server and you find weird things. Empty? This is session something? This could be a session something? I'm lost. Sorry. Let's continue with this one. So this is something you could do by hand. It's the dirty cow. You just take this code and then you... Do I have Vim? Can I open Vim? That's the other question. What's it called? Dirty... You know, why are we being so stupid? We can just use wget. No. Okay. It worked out. Perfect. We even have the instruction locally. So what's this do? This is, I think, just the test. Yeah. Okay, now let's compile the code. Let's hope we don't have any code things we need to fix. Compiled pretty quickly. Then we pass that file. Come on. Set some memory mapping to some numbers. I honestly have no idea how this exploit works. I just know it does. Should on this machine. No, didn't work. I guess I'm still stuck at this step. Maybe we can combine this MSF console dirty cow over reverse shell. It should be possible to do that. Okay, I mean, come on. Yes, we don't lose anything, don't worry. We still have our shell persistent, but I don't know the URL. Well, it's not that hard. Which is the one from today? This one. Perfect. Okay. And this is what I wanted to show you. So this one is still working. We can now listen to this one. And I think we can just connect. No. What? How did that work? Okay. Looks like that doesn't work like this. It depends on the payload. Maybe I should have picked another one. But back on track. MSF console. Let's just search for dirty cow. Hang on. Dirty cow had a CVE, right? Here it is. Search CVE. No results. MSF update. Why don't we have dirty cow? Actually, you know what? Let's just run this again. And I mean, we have remote code execution, but we are a limited user. Let's just check dirty cow kernel and then this one. Yeah, the exploit DB is a good place. Overlay FS local privilege escalation sounds perfect for me. Is there a way? Yeah, view raw. That's what I want. Lucky for you, that's what I want. That's what, of course. What's inside of this file? Exactly what we want. Let's just move this one to exploit.c. Perfect. And okay, so what does this exploit do? I don't know, but let's just build it. And then what do we call it? We can then ID and run this exploit. Oh, Oh! Oh! Okay, this one worked. Perfect. This one worked. We are root. And that's fantastic because now we can like add this one to our findings as well. Let's just do here a little note for us for the next time. Brief-isk with this one. Perfect. Okay. And now, so we now have achieved what we wanted, whatever that means. We are root. So what I want to do, so next time we don't have to do all of this stuff over again, is a persistence. Create sudo user in Linux. Easy peasy. How to create a sudo user. Okay, so now we have the user zenit, and then we just add this to that group. Sudo zenit. Yes. Okay, and we can just SSH to this one. Boom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Plus sudo cut its shadow. Boom. Okay, that's nice. Now we have persisted ourselves with our users. And what I want to do next is actually test their passwords and then try to pivot over to the next machine, which is the Windows host. So let's change into our mock pentest directory, make it a little bit bigger. What did we put in pass? Okay, so that's the pass, and that makes a directory for the Linux host, cd into it. Perfect. Now, or we can do it a little bit easier, just cat out the etc passwd, copy it from here, and then call it passwd. Now we have our passwd file. And then do the same with the shadow file. Permission denied. Ha, you think so? I'm sudo on this machine. I can do whatever I like. This machine is now mine. So let's take a look at it. This is the shadow file, and then perfect. Okay, let's actually do the cracking of the passwords first. And while that runs, I'll explain to you a little bit of things. So there is the on-shadow tool, and then we need to pass it the shadow file, which we called shadow. All right, now that we have that, how did that work? We should have, I think I need to pipe this. I haven't used John in a while, so let's do a quick Google search. John shadow. Okay, John the Ripper shadow. Yeah, so we need to unshadow it, and I think I need to pipe the output into a file. Yeah, exactly. So let's pipe this result into crack me, and now we have it in there. And okay, then we can just start. Let's start John. We need show crack me. 2 password hashes cracked. Okay, so we cracked Vagrant and Zenit. But if you let's take a look at the crack me file. Yeah, it looks like those people have passwords as well. So the brute force mechanism didn't work. We need to pass it at word list. John the Ripper word list. I'm not sure on the commands what their syntax is. I should know this. I think it's just by specifying a word list, but let's make sure I don't make me look like a fool. All right, okay. So we specify the crack me, and then we just need a word list, and we're gonna just use user share word lists rock.txt. So for those of you that don't know, I'm using Kali Linux, and in the Kali Linux, let me actually show you green. No, okay, doesn't have screen fetch. Does it have neo fetch? Neither. Okay, so I'm running Kali Linux. I can show you actually a better way. Kali, and in Kali you have a couple of word lists pre-installed in the directory user share word lists. rock.txt is a dump from a breach a while ago, or a longer while ago, with a lot of common passwords. So we can let this one run. Okay, we need to add the MD5 format as well. MD5 crypt. Hey Garrett, thank you very much for your donation, Garrett. All right. And also Gabe A with the super chat. Is that true? Fantastic. Thank you very much. So while this one is cracking, let me actually show you this file. so you can take a look at what we're trying against. So we're running a word list attacks. We're running a word list attack against all the users that we found. Okay, so yeah, so here we are, and we're trying all these passwords. Sorry, my cat sometimes needs to go out of the room and back into for no particular reason other than to annoy me. But yeah, so we're trying all these passwords which are commonly used and were found in a huge data dump breach against each of the users that we found on the server, which is like the R2D2, the Darth Vader, the Anakin Skywalker. What? Hang on, why does Anakin have 2 accounts? There is Darth Vader and Anakin, but that's the same person. Spoiler alert. So yeah, but we don't need those passwords because actually we are in the groups of sudo. So we already own this machine. If you missed how I did that, you can watch the video from last time where we did this. And now I have multiple ways I can go on with this. So one way would be to just use this machine. I mean, I'm sudo, and for what I know, I have internet access, so I can also install all the tools I need on this machine. Which, let's say we have the scenario where the Windows host wasn't publicly available, but the Linux host is. So now we've breached the company by entering their Linux server, which is connected to the Windows host. And our goal is to jump over to the Windows host, escalate our privileges, and then be admin. And at the end of the day, we want to basically own their whole domain. So we need to be domain admin. But we're gonna do that step by step. So we need a way to break into the Windows server, because yeah, that's the next step. And the best way to go about this would be to scan it. Let's say from an internal point of view, we have no firewall in between, and we can see all the ports that are available internally to us. For example, the Windows host could host a database, which the web application on this server will use, but the database port will not be exposed externally, only internally. So this host will, so the Linux host we compromised will see the database, but we from the outside, from our Kali box, couldn't see it. So long story short, we should do a port scan. Now, we all know my favorite tool to do port scan is Nmap, but we don't have it on this machine. What a bummer. Now, there are 2 ways we could go about this. One is to just install it. We are admins, we have internet access, and if this works, then all is fine. The second way would be to use this server as a proxy. So we could basically relay our traffic via this host from our local machine. But since it's going to work that easy, let's do it like this. So in a real assessment, you probably don't want to do this, because I'm now leaving traces behind for the defenders to find. And depending on your assessment type, this can be the type of thing you want to do. For example, let me say I want to be noisy as hell because I want to test how quickly the defense will respond to me doing noisy stuff over their network. So I'm installing the tools directly on this machine. So when they have their routine checkup or whatever, maybe they have some alerting when you install some tools, they can see that and then counteract me and then basically kick me off. So I can write down in my report, I tried to breach in, install malware, but they blocked me. But it doesn't look like they're blocking me now, mainly because there are no defenders available on this machine. So we can install whatever we want and leave all the traces that we want. So depending on what you want to do, you want to leave traces behind so you get caught, or you just want to be stealthy as possible. Alright, okay, so now we have our Nmap on this machine. Let's do an IPA, and oh, look at this. This machine is running Docker. So what we do now is something along the line of post-exploitation reconnaissance, or enum, or whatever you want to call it. So we have multiple things to look at here. So first of all, our interface information can give us a lot of info that we need going on forward. For example, we have now found the internal IP address. So we can scan on this port and find all the internal hosts, or we can continue with this one, which will find the ones that are available to the outside as well. But we already did that from our local Kali machine. Also, here is this Docker 0, which tells me Docker is installed on this machine. And I have no idea what this is yet. Maybe we may be taking a look at it later on. But for now, let me check. So we can already see we have something going on Docker. All right. So I forgot to okay, so we scanned a couple of, that's interesting. We got 1, 2, and 3. So we have 3 hosts. Now let's put these hosts into a file. Take a look at it. Perfect. And now we can run nmap on these hosts and find and scan basically every port, V and O and all that. But I think nmap has a flag as A. So enable OS detection, version detection, script scanning, scanning and traceroute. So this does a lot of things and gives us back tons of information. So we want to do that verbose as well. I think so we do a little bit of verbosity. We use every scanning tool at our option. We run it at one of the higher speed. We also want to have an output so that we have something for our report. OA internal network, and then how was the list again? I think it's IL, right? IL, input from list, yeah. And then we do I and the hosts. And what we also want to do is P dash, which will scan all available ports. So let's run this in the background. It already found a couple of things. This one has, I think, found nothing so far. And perfect. Okay, so now we have a couple of things going on that we can let run in the background while we try to find out what's in this Docker. We can do that with Docker attach. Should be the one I'm looking for. Maybe we can just sudo docker attach and then the ID. Perfect, we're in. Who am I? Root. Let's unzip this 7 of diamonds. Unzip opt. Yeah, install unzip with 1p update. Now if that doesn't work, we can find another way to do it, but let's opt install unzip. Maybe the package is called zip. Yeah. Okay, so let's run our command from before again. Come on, another one of those challenges. Let's go into 7 of diamonds, and we have 7 of diamonds again. This hint tells me nothing. No, maybe I need to look at it a little bit closer, but for now we're gonna do one layer more, and this one is a password. Okay, we can do that with fcrackzip later on. For now, let's take a look at how far we've come here. So we're at 66%. I haven't seen anything related to having found any passwords so far. The scan over here is done. We have our scan reports. We will copy them to our machine later on, so we have them for our thing here, our report. Actually, let's do that right now, so you can see how we can do that with SCP. Let's go into our mock Pentest and then SCP. If you run commands on bash without or whatever shell you are without arguments, most of the time they will tell you the arguments, unless it's a program that will run without arguments. Okay, so that ain't gonna help us. Do we have TLDR? No. Let's install TLDR. For those of you that don't know what TLDR is basically a short cheat sheet for all commands on Linux. Instead of going through the man pages, which are very long, you can just run TLDR and then SCP. And there, of course, is no entry for SCP. Maybe we need to update it first. Yeah, looks like we needed to update our library first. And now we can take a look at SCP. Perfect. And then you have basically some quick and easy ways on how to use the tool without having to read all of the manual. So if you know what a program does, it's an easy way for you to just use this. So copy a local file to remote host. No, that's not what we want. Copy a file from a remote host to a local directory. That's exactly what we want. So we're gonna copy and paste this, and the remote host is, what was the IP? This one. So we're copying this one, path to remote file. Let's get our working directory is home/zenith, and our local directory is dash, and we want the file internal network.nmap for now. That should suffice, and we have it here. Perfect. Okay, so now we have it for our documentation. We can read it calmly while we're on our machine and don't need to do it over here. So let's take a quick glance at it and see what possible attack vectors we can find. So internally, we have found 3 machines. This one has a couple of ports open. So there is the VirtualBox VM remote desktop service. There is a Microsoft HTTP API, an unknown port. This one, I think it's RDP. We have 2 Windows hosts, but it's telling me that this is from Ubuntu. So this one is the Windows host we're after. Okay, actually, let's take a closer look at it. Our IP was 2, and here we have 2.2. 2.2. We have 2.3. That's nice. It even stores the output even stores what command you put in. That's nice. 2.3, 2.4. Why are there so many hosts? Are they running like more Docker stuff on the Windows machine? That's weird. OS Windows. Okay, so let's actually take a look at this one. Let's first ping the host to check if it's still around. Yeah, okay, it looks fine. How's our cracking going? And maybe we can even consult our scan from last time. Maybe we find some overlap. So we have cat network 1 scan nmap. So by now I think this one is RDP, but why is it open so many on so many machines? Yeah, that's RDP. So no, remote. Okay, I need to install that one as well. And I hope it works with RDP out of the box. And Rahul, thank you for watching my stream. You said you waited an entire week for the stream. It's the most exciting thing about Fridays. I'm very glad you see it like that. I was also excited for the stream, so that makes 2 of us. Perfect. RDP. Now let's take a look. What was the IP? No, come on. The session is completed. Did it yield any results? No. We only cracked 2 hashes? Damn. Maybe I need to try with the MD5 crypt long format. I mean, doesn't hurt us. We can run this in the background. If need be, we can start applying some rules as well. Where was I? Where is my line of thought? Yeah, I need the IP of this one. This. Zack. Boom. Let's try if we can connect via RTP. That would be awesome, but it doesn't look like it. No. Okay, so the Windows host looks like is it hardened better? I don't think so. I just think I'm doing it wrong. So this one is the Windows host. Let's try. Actually, I have an idea. Now that we are root on this machine, we could look for SSH keys of the other users, and then we don't even need their passwords. Won't that be awesome? Let's take a look if they even have a home. So who do we want to be? Anakin Skywalker, Boba Fett, Darth Vader. But Anakin Skywalker and Darth Vader are the same person. Let's go with Anakin, because he was my brother. Okay, so Anakin doesn't have an SSH file. Now, if we're doing it like this, will take years. So let's do it just once again for the root. And root doesn't have SSH as well. Alright, let's take a look at the machine. Which one was the Windows one? The .4? I think it was the .4. Okay, so we're running a couple of different things. There is an SSH, OpenSSH 7.1. I think that one is most up-to-date one we can have, but let's take a look at it anyways. So one way we can do that is with a tool called Searchsploit. Basically, that's like having exploit DB locally on your machine, so you can even use that if you don't have any internet. Let's just take a look. I mean, how many did it find? Yeah, okay, it doesn't look like too many. So we have username enumeration. All right, that we already have all the usernames. There is Kerberos token. Okay. There's a buffer overflow, denial of service, command execution, user enumeration, username enumeration. All right. Okay. Looks like they're all right. Arbitrary file, but it's just SCP client. We don't have any version. Yeah. Would be nice to see what arbitrary L means. And by the way, Tracy, you're getting blocked for a while because you've been spamming and asking for hacking stuff. That's not really what we do here. Okay, so you've been marked as a spammer. Sorry, I have to do the moderation myself. I also try to hack this machine, so I hope you're a little bit lenient with me. Okay, so we have arbitrary library loading. We don't want that. Command execution. That's what we want. Authenticated command injection. Challenge response buffer overflow, but that's too low. That's too low. That's too low. Maybe we can do something with the arbitrary file writing thing. I'm not so sure though. Man, my throat is killing me. Then what else do we have? We have Microsoft HTTP API. We have HTTP buffer overflow, buffer overflow, buffer overflow, cross-site scripting, denial of service. I'm not even sure we can use that. Do we have something from Microsoft? No. Let's look if we find something. Nope. Maybe we can see something on the server. So we have 172.20.128. Default port gives us nothing, but the HTTP stuff is running on a higher port, which is 558. Unable to connect. Maybe we can connect from the inside, and in the meantime we can try to connect from the inside. So this is the port, and the IP in here is 10.024. Connection refused. Why though? We can clearly see over here that it's open. Oh, hang on. UPnP. What does that stand for? I've heard that. UPnP. Universal plug. In the end, I'm scanning my own home devices, but the network should actually be sandbox from my home network. Then we have this one. What the hell is running on this port? There's not much open on this machine. So how do we attack it properly? What does our vulnerability scan say about that host? If I can remember how to start it. I've made an alias. Start OpenVAS. This is our IP. Well, it's our loopback device, so shouldn't come as a surprise that is our IP. So now we need to wait for it to start. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Log in and take a look at our hosts, because we should have to. Okay, so that's weird. It says the vulnerability scanner says the second host is Linux, but it isn't. Hang on, my cat now wants to enter again. So my cat is joining me in this adventure. I think for a short while. He will soon get out again. And okay, so this one is pretty sure that it's a Linux OS, but that's wrong. And say hello to my cat. Let's make a quick cat intermission, because why not? Look at him. Isn't he cute? Cute and annoying, like all cats. And now, live from my studio, my cat. I hope you don't mind it though. Let's take a look at our machines. So, why is it powered off? I started it before the stream. Why the heck is it powered off? But, I mean, that doesn't change the fact that it's a Windows machine. Then what are all the other things that we found? It doesn't make sense. It's starting to confuse the hell out of me. Why did we find like 4 hosts in this network if there aren't 4 hosts? Hang on, is my machine in the same network as well? No, I'm in a different network. So where are those machines coming from? Weird things are happening. I think it has to do something with the Docker daemon running. Let's close this one up. See, that's a Windows server, not a real quick scan. Okay, so we found this one. And this one should have RDP, so I mean, no wonder we timed out here. Let's close this one up and just try it again. And just to make sure, let's actually take a look if this one is configured properly as well. Sorry for this little hiccup. That's just me making sure it's configured correctly. The Windows license is expired. Maybe that's the reason nothing is working on this machine. The machine is unhackable because it's not running. I also find it weird that we cannot sort by hosts. I guess that's why you use Nessus instead of OpenWAS, but I was like, oh, let's try OpenWAS, why not? Should be fun. We can do brute forcing on this one. Hey Joe, what's up? How is Spain doing for you? Then let's take a look at ipconfig in here. That's weird. That should be 215. So why didn't we find it exactly? Ah, here it is. Okay, so something has gone wrong with the configuration because obviously this machine is 10 to 15, but this machine is 10 to 15 as well. So looks like my configuration was all wrong. That's weird. So I think I'll fix that for the next episode and then we can take a look at the Windows machine later on. For now, let's just keep it in the background and see what we can do here. Wow, damn. We're running this for like 20 minutes and we've only covered 5%, so I don't think we will have any luck with the cracking of the passwords as well. So we are stuck on this Linux machine for now, but we are root and we need a way into 02, was it right? What does Nmap think that the OS is on that machine? Or are they for some reason not on the same internal network? Sorry that this has turned out, this turned into VBoxNet 0, a debugging session. No, they're in the same. Okay, so it says this one is a... So these two are related to SMB. SMB? Oh, okay, that could be a gold mine if this is the machine, the Windows machine, and this is really SMB. Let's do a scan with all the information for this host, and I'll be back soon. Hold on. So funnily enough, my cat has left the room. So life as a pet owner is just constantly opening doors and closing them. Nice. Okay, so it looks like... Okay, so this is our full scan. I should have put that in a report. Or we can run it again. That's no problem. Yeah, that's our Linux host we're on right now. That's weird. That's weird. Why is it so weird? This I run, and what did it give me? That's weird. Everything is weird. All scanned ports are closed. I don't believe that. Something's just wrong with my config. Apparently not. Okay, so maybe we can scan this host from the inside. So this scan is still running. This cracking thing, I don't think we will get any results back from this, to be honest. Then we could continue with this one, which we would need to crack this one. So let's actually read the head of the hint. Netscape 2. So Netscape 2, yeah, that was a browser. I knew that one. I also used that one a long time ago, or yeah, a really long time ago. Maybe let's take a look at Easter eggs. Okay, so this one is a dead end for me right now. This one from outside can't be scanned for anything, and now we have something. Now this is looking like something we could actually... Oh, we're still here. Yeah, so the OS discovery tells me it's Windows 6.1 Ubuntu. Nice to know that Ubuntu is now also considered Windows. Okay, so this can did my session hang itself? Let's add some verbosity and maybe not do all ports, but just a couple of them. Let's see if we already found something in the Linux host password. John show, crack me. No, still just these two passwords. But so this one should be visible from the outside, but for some reason it only has one IP. Maybe I need to set it up properly. Yeah, looks like only one of those adapters is set up correctly, but I think I will do that off screen. This time I just booted up the Windows machine because last time we had some issues that the Windows machine and the Linux machine had the same IP, but since we already basically own the Linux machine, we can pretend like we're using that Linux machine to pivot into the internal network where this machine lives. So now you can see my gigantic forehead, so you know for sure that I'm smart. To not bore you with some waiting time, I let OpenWAS run the scan on it. It's called Metasploitable scan clone 1, and it has found a couple of things. I also run already the nmap scan, and we found out that it's a Windows machine. I think it even says which version, which is correct, I think. We can take a look at it later once we own it. The Windows server has a Microsoft FTPD, which is basically an FTP server. So here we know already it's Microsoft. It's running a website on port 80. It's running something with a question mark, so I'm not sure what it is. Maybe something with HTTPS. And then we have something called TCP wrapped, which I have no idea what it is. So we do what every man does, and we search for TCP wrapped. Sorry, we do what every person that has no idea what's going on does. So TCP wrapped, maybe because I was running the scan fast, or maybe because of firewall rules. Alright, so that's what we have on the open port side. We have a scan over here as well. And once I figure out how the hell I can both have the same ports. So reports. Why can't I just see the vulnerabilities of the report of the scan? Come on, yeah. I still have no idea how OpenWAS is supposed to work, but I guess here we have the report. Then we order everything by severity, and we're interested in the highs and the infos. But I guess this machine is obviously made very easy to find out a lot of information. So I'm not sure we will find more useful information when we will use the information severity vulnerabilities that we found. Now, okay, this looks wrong. March 2nd, yeah, that's definitely wrong. Why can't I just get, oh man, I was on the wrong one. But to be honest, Nessus is just so much easier to use, no question there. But Nessus is just pretty expensive, and I want this to be pretty easy to follow along, so I'm using free and open and non-cost software so that you can follow along at home without having to spend money. Let's zoom in on this page so you can actually see something. We found a lot of pretty high vulnerabilities, so that's obviously what we're targeting today, because we want to basically just get a way into the system. I also prepared a little bit of the report, because that's an important part, which states that we have a goal / objective based type of testing going on, and now my editor has crashed. Perfect. Don't you love it when your editor crashes? Yeah, rip my DC. Yeah, my Discord channel server is dead, so I will delete it after this live stream. But don't be afraid, you can join in on the live stream and chat every Friday. So I added some findings over here and a couple of to-dos over here, and we will probably add more information now that we are attacking the second host. But I guess I could be taking better notes. Well, we'll see at the end when we create the report how bad or good it will work out. Alright, okay, so what do we have? We have a stack buff overflow vulnerability. We have multiple vulnerabilities on PHP. We have a remote code execution vulnerability, Elasticsearch, end of life detection. End of life buffer overflow does remote code execution. So it looks like we have a couple of remote code execution. Let's open this one first, because this has 95% of, I think that's quality of detection. At least this number means how sure is Greenbone that this vulnerability actually exists. So this one, we want remote code execution, obviously. So let's take a look. Why doesn't it open it in the new tab? Today nothing is working. Perfect. So let's open our favorite script kiddie tool. Some people call it a script kiddie tool, but actually I see it more as a professional tool. You know what I mean? Then let's look for the CVE 2015-1635. And we have protocol stack request handling. All right, so they are both auxiliary and normal ranked modules, so they are not really interesting for us, because god damn it, English is such a painful language. But it's basically a scanning. So we have to be in a network, which we are. It should be easy to exploit. It doesn't require authentication, and we can get full access. So let's actually take a look at what they do. And sadly, there isn't any Metasploit module that we can use for this example. So am I on the right one? But maybe on the other one. Where was it? In here, PHP and the CVE. So if we don't have this CVE as well, all right, so we do it manually. Now I have to find out how to do this manually. So there is this proof of concept exploit, which we can take a look at, and it would probably not hurt to read this first before running it. So we have a couple of registers here. This basically explains the bug, and usually when you have registers, it's a hint that it could be a buffer overflow. So what do we send it? We create a request, one which is just a get, and one which is another get with a higher version of HTTP and a byte range. The usage is pretty simple, just the script name and then the IP of the server. And then it says audit started, connect to the server, write, read, no IIS, doesn't have an IIS running, looks vuln. Okay, so I think that's just for the detection. I'm not sure this will actually exploit it, even though it's called exploit. So let's go into our directory, make a new one for the Windows host, and then create, what is it called? That's the wrong one. HTTP sysexploit.c, and then compile it. Yeah, I never know if I have to pass it the input or the output, but I guess it makes more sense to pass it. Now I'm not in the Windows host, so no, not deployment, exploit1. Okay, so that's the script we want. And then the IP of the server, which we should have in the report as well, this one. So it's the same as the Linux one last time, again with the wrong terminal. And let's see what it does. Didn't look like it did something, just checks if the vulnerability is available. And while this runs, let's look at the other results. The Linux host was so easy. I guess this one would be as easy as well. So we have a security bypass vulnerability for the OpenSSH X11 forwarding. We can brute force the logins. PHP has multiple vulnerabilities, but I'm wondering if the FTP has some vulnerabilities as well. So OpenSSH has vulnerability, the Elasticsearch, okay, FTP has brute force. Doesn't sound too exciting, to be honest. It was possible to log in with the following credentials: Vagrant. I'm not sure if I should use those, since they're basically from the setup, but I guess you may find those in a real environment as well if the admin team is not doing system hardening. So we could actually use those. We also have a arbitrary code execution vulnerability, but the question is, can we execute it from our machine, or do we have to jump on their host first? Because we would need a way to do that first, which is actually what I'm trying to do. No results. Okay, I'm not sure we can trigger that one. How did actually our test go? You know what? I don't need this scan. I need this scan. But actually I could just use tabs, which would make the whole process so much easier. So let's use tabs instead of multiple windows, and open the Metasploitable framework in here as well. And we have a connection failed. Why do we have a connection failed? Is the host down again? Come on, I just started you up. Why are you doing that? So it's running port 80 as we saw from the scan, not IIS. Okay, I think we need to specify on which port the IIS was running. It should be 80. But first of all, actually let's take a look at all the websites. So we can go away from here and use this one. All right, we have a website on port 80, which is IIS. And we have something on port 8080, which is called Glassfish. So what do we get from there? Unable to connect. Fantastic. Is the host really up? Destination host unreachable. But that's weird. If the host is unreachable, why can we get this? Probably it's just blocking ICMP requests to prevent ping flooding. So let's take a quick look if the host is up with Nmap. I'm not sure if Nmap does the same, but it says 0 hosts up. Okay, so it may be the scan itself crashed the server. So let's just boot it up back again. This is something that may actually happen in a real test, so make sure you check what payloads you're sending to not break everything. But the weird thing is, why the hell does this still work? Probably because I visited it before and it was cached in my browser. So let's take a look if we find anything in here. Doesn't look like it. Oh, perfect. So we have a Glassfish server running. And we got a default site, which is usually a sign of bad hygiene. Let's install Flameshot if it's in the opt repos. I'm showing you quickly why, and do a little bit of setup for the shortcuts, keyboard, application shortcuts, and then print. We don't want to launch Kazam, we want to launch Flameshot. Let's take a look if that actually worked out. Okay, so we have Flameshot running, but Flameshot snipping. Actually, you know what? Let's read the man page and then let's try to run it real quick because it's still not what I want to show. Flameshot screen. Is it screen? GUI? I think it's GUI. Yeah, it's GUI. Okay, so let's actually change our shortcut again to Flameshot GUI. And now if okay, I have no idea how XFCE works. I usually use i3VM. Should I really spend my time on this? Really, I gotta create a shortcut. Okay, looks like it takes too much time to do what I actually wanted to do. Or does anybody in the chat know how XFCE works? Hey, random moose brains. Nice to see you in the chat. Look, here they actually use things. But why doesn't the one work with Flameshot? GUI? Okay. I'm pretty sure I created like 20 screenshots just trying to make it run. Okay, it's not that much. The stream is already a disaster. Alright, let's just... Don't want that. Why can I not add commands? I was running the wrong command altogether. Ha! Now it works. Almost as if I knew what I was doing. So we're taking a screenshot and include the URL, which is important. Copy this, go over to our Pentest, and then we just write it down somewhere that we will find it again, and we will call it default web page exposed, because that is a finding. But that's not the worst thing that's happening on the server. We have a neat link over here that's called go to the administration console. Now, can we actually access the administration console? We will find out. We can't. Oh man, all that build up for nothing. But here it says it's open. So why can't we access it? It says localhost. Yeah, clearly we have no access to localhost on this port because there is nothing running on that port on my machine. And we got something. So let's take a look at what's actually inside. Accept the risk and continue. And we're on the Glassfish server administration console, which looks like a very old version of what Wildfly or JBoss do. And we have username and password. So you know what we're doing next, right? We will be running, I fixed it, haha. We will take this screenshot and then we will put it in our notes. Admin interface exposed, which you should never expose your admin interface to the internet. What we could try as in the next step is to just look for, what's it called? Glassfish 2S. Fish server default creds. Now while we do that, actually let's pull some of my cheat sheets because that should get updated as well. And let's, how do I search in here? Search for default, what's that? Metasploit. Oh, we don't care about that. It didn't update anything today. Nothing is working as it should. Let's just stash and pull. All right, now that's more of what I want. Default default passwords. I thought that I wrote down a website. Doesn't look like it. Here it is. Finally, something is working as I want to. Maybe we can search on here. And obviously this doesn't work. Fantastic. The default username is admin and by default no password is required. So let's just try admin. Let's try admin. So it looks like they changed the password, which is actually something good. Almost. So what can we do in something like this scenario? Well, first of all, we don't know if that gives us any information, but since we know that there is running a Glassfish server, I think Glassfish server is something like JBoss or Wildfly, so maybe we should take a look at what version we're running. That's always a good thing to do. So we have 4 Glassfish 4.0 default credentials. It looks like they are not using a default password. And I don't think it's admin and change it, because we tried that. Admin, change it. No. Okay, no success. But actually, do we have burp on this machine? Perfect. So we have burp, which means that we can brute force this with a word list. My favorite thing to do. We can do some online cracking, which takes forever. I mean, it just takes forever to boot up burp. Hello? Burp. Also, now you see the reason why I use i3 instead of a non-tiling window manager. Look at this mess. If I were using i3, my life would be so much more organized. And the neat thing about... Oh, come on, don't bother me. The neat thing about the newer version of burp is that actually you can open a browser. I guess not, huh? Today is the stream where nothing will work. Here it is. It just took its time. Obviously, it's Chrome, so it's got a... Wow. I feel like I'm on Internet Explorer in the olden days. So let's go to this website and then actually just perform one login. And it failed. Perfect. Now let's go to the history. So which one was it? Fix me. Oh, there are some comments on the website. Fix me. Add code to ensure we're the topmost frame. So we could add some click checking, but that's not really of interest for us. We want to try to get into the system without outside help. So here we have a post, username admin, password admin. It's a wrong password. All right, perfect. So let's send this to intruder. Let's go to intruder. Let's select our positions, clear them all, because all we want to attack is this admin over here. And we need to go up, and then into the, where's the user, share, and then to the word lists in here. And what do we want to try? So what's in Metasploit? Ooh, that's a lot of things. So default pass for services on hash. Here we have Oracle default passwords, Oracle default user pass. That sounds like something we could use. Let's actually take a quick look at user, share, word lists, Metasploit, and then Oracle default user pass. Yeah, that's what I thought. They have both in them. Default passwords. Okay, maybe we have something specific to Glassfish. We have Tomcat, which goes into the same direction more or less, but it's all just Java stuff. Who cares about Java anyways? Actually, let's try this one. Let's try the Tomcat default pass. All right. So that's the first list we're gonna use. What do we have in default pass for services on hash? Okay, yeah, that looks like a list we could use as well. Which one? Default pass for services on hash. And maybe we want to do some more. Maybe let's actually also input the rock.utxe. So now we're killing burp with the sheer amount of data. And I think we could start the attack. So we have about 1,000 passwords we can try once burp is alive. But until then, we can take a look at other things. So we have SSH, we have FTP, we have, so this one we checked, but this one we didn't check. So there's another web service. Bad request is picking plain HTTP to an HTTPS. Okay, so first of all, this server doesn't have HTST enabled, I think, or at least it doesn't redirect from HTTP to HTTPS. And it has a self-signed certificate, which is also bad. But since this is a lab environment, we will just ignore that. And then we go into this, and the server is temporarily unavailable. Hello, Burp. Are you coming to your senses? Hello. I might have killed Burp. Come on. I think the raw queue was too much for it to handle. So this one, let's actually take a look at the source. Okay, this looks like it's really a problem on the server side. I don't know how to magnify Burp. Holy crap. We have, hang on, 14 million. Pause. And then we gotta check the response, and there should be like an error message. Where is the error message? Why can't I see the error message? Hey, Joey. All right, so let's take this and then, okay. Stop the attack. Come on. Yeah, say hello to Joey, everybody. We had this authentication failed. Or actually, let's clear everything, because for now we're just interested in the authentication failed and authentication failed. And then we start the attack again. This might take a little while again, which gives me plenty of time to take Joey on this side. And since we're using the free version, the attack is front perfect. Now we can let this one run in the background and come check in later. Cats are such hassles. And then we can filter here if we failed or not. So let's just run this for a couple of minutes, hours, days, whatever in the background. But what's also interesting is the website itself. So the website, first of all, what the hell is up with this image? Why is this image so weird? Haha, JPEG. So we have an hidden input. Holy crap, how big is this? Now we have the decoder on our side, so let's just, yeah, I guess the sheer amount of data I'm putting into Burp is killing it. So let's leave Burp alone for a while. And actually, let's take a look at this picture, because we can see it completely. So this should be the full picture. Ha ha ha. Now this looks pretty like a CTF situation to me, or this could be a situation where you're in a pen test and you encounter evidence indicators of a previous compromise. So in such a case, you would actually stop all testing activities, so stop the Burp intruder that's running and everything, and directly contact your clients and tell them, hey, go check out your website. It looks like somebody already hacked it. But maybe this is a CTF kinda situation, so let's just continue with it. We get what? I can't even type wget anymore. Let's find out what this actually is. It's a JPEG image. Who would have thought? How did foremost work? No, Wim, I don't want to record the command. Okay, what forensic tools do we have in here? Because it could be that there is some hidden information in this file. So what we do is a forensic analysis of it, so we can give our client some more information. If it's a, maybe it's a reverse shell. Yeah, strings. That sounds like a good idea. Why not? I don't see any useful information in the strings. Do you see something? Is there steno in that image? Yeah, I'm trying to detect if there is steno, but the tool I'm most familiar with is called foremost, and steno tool. Yeah, so I suppose it should be on Kali, but doesn't look like it is in the newest version for whatever reason. And how did that work again? No, foremost was the recovery tool from disk images. Yeah, but stag height. Yeah, stag height. That's the name I was looking for. Stag height. Extract. Yeah, that's the one. And obviously it's not installed as well. So let's just hope it doesn't have a passphrase. Let's use stag height, extract, whatever SF does, and then haha, JPEG. Let's try an empty one. Damn. We need a passphrase. Maybe we can use a word list. We need another tool. Okay, let's go with stagsig. Looks like it was pretty fast. Stagsig. Oh no, a manual install. Let's save it, install it, and then just try to crack it. Perfect. Ha ha ha, JPEG. How do I pass the word list? Just the name of the word list. Okay, user share word lists rockutxt. Damn, that's pretty fast, but it didn't find any passphrase. Okay, so it looks like our rockutxt file is completely useless. Metasploitable free. Okay, so this one doesn't work. That's the Linux server. But maybe it's hidden in the bits. Well, it couldn't be too, but actually, I'm not sure. Let me try something. Let's create a file. So first of all, we need a secret. Doesn't have to be called like that. Then we will use stack height. Embed. I need a picture as well. So let's just move something from my download. No, not move, copy something from my downloads folder. Let's just take this image and put it in here, and then we can try to hide it and first let's take a look. So it asks for a passphrase as well, even if it has nothing embedded into it. So it might just be that it's just a normal picture. But what still confuses me is first burp, you found nothing so far. All right, I guess that's fine. Also, everything gets the same error message. So yeah, perfect. We might just go with the Vagrant login we found. Where was it again? I mean, that would have been the easiest way to go in. Where was it? Somewhere it said it had default credentials with the Vagrant, and that's the wrong. So it looks like this server is actually, at least the parts that we took a look at, they are managed better than on the Linux machine, which comes as a surprise to me. What the hell is Blitziana? So the Lucene version, if I'm recalling it correctly, Lucene is it? Yeah, Lucene has to do with Elasticsearch. So something in here is using Elasticsearch. Actually, you know what we also could try before digging too deep into everything is just, okay, now it looks completely different, but all right. Let's go into the Windows host. How do I use dirb? And the IP. Can I see what it's trying? Oh, it's finding a couple of things. Ooh, okay, so it already found a couple of things. Why didn't I run this from the beginning? Okay, so there is ASP running on it. No, I'm copying this one. You know, for all the great things that Linux has, copy pasting isn't one of it. So we have forbidden, but it didn't ask me for any credentials. Yeah, that's the one we had before. Let's try it with another word list. What was the command for the word list? Maybe not the common one. What do we have? Small, Spanish. Let's go. What's in others? Best 15. All right, let's go with best 15. Okay, did I use it wrong? Yeah, let's see the location header as well. We have ASP, we have Glassfish. I mean, the simplest solution would be to just SSH as Vagrant into it, since we already found out what? Yeah, that's because it has the same IP as the other host. But that's weird. Okay, so actually this looks more like Windows. So we are on the machine with some default credentials, which is what happens a lot of the time. But why can we use ls on Windows? Isn't Windows dir? Ha! Now we're in the Windows shell. Windows can do dir, ls. What can we reach? Can we go back? Yeah, so what users are here? We have an administrator, the classic.net app pool, public, SSHD server, and Vagrant. Now we could play around in here and take a look at more information, but actually I don't want to use the Vagrant one because it's set up with Vagrant obviously, and that's just the cheap way. But that's something that you can write down as finding default credentials of Vagrant still used Windows host. So we have that for information, and then we can write that down, Vagrant creds. But I don't like the way of doing it like that, because I mean, yeah, obviously that could be a real case, but I want to enter in another way. So did any of our attacks have some success? So in here the length is always the same, which hints at we have done nothing. Here we have an unavailable service. We can also write that down in the notes. What do we have? Website with single image, indicator of compromise. Yeah, because their website is pretty weird. Why would somebody have a website like that? Just basically an ha 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 image. This looks like their website has already been pwned. And now for my last trick, let's actually check if the exploit works or if it will crash the server again. I hope not. Do we have to pass it a port as well? Oh. Ha, looks vuln. Okay, so we have this vulnerability. I now just need to find out how to exploit it. I mean, I think we could try a buffer overflow manually. Well, it doesn't mention anything about buffer overflows in here. The code had some registers in it and it tries to fill a really huge range, which could mean that it's susceptible to buffer overflow, but I think that's something that would be mentioned in here. But first of all, copy pasting, it's a pain. Let's write this down in here so we know it for next time as well. This one has still found nothing. Come on, Burp, you're leaving me hanging. Why? And this decoder, yeah, good luck with that. I think Burp is dead. What is Blitziana? Actually, what is Blitziana in the first place? So many tabs, so few exploits. Sad. The Linux host was so easy. The wrong scan. We have something in MSF Venom. Wait, did it say remote code or just arbitrary code? Remote code. Okay. And here we have Python. Or is it? Yeah, it's Python. But to be honest, it looks like it does the same as the one before without crashing the server. Okay, I guess this is also just a checker. But I don't want a checker. Go to the original one, maybe that has more information. Also, we haven't checked anything. Okay, at least we cannot log in with Anonymous. Oh wait, that's not FTP, it's SMTP. I think. And now I need to read this whole file and understand where I have to put in my payload. Why is everything so hard? So in the test it just sets everything to F. That's why it's called hex all F. But maybe we find some explanation, because apparently this is a really critical vulnerability, so why can't I find a decent explanation of it? If exploitable, let's just look at everything. What was the name of the CVE? Let's go back and exploit. Yeah, well, I don't want to bore you with me reading this, so let's actually extract this as my homework so that I can read it off screen. Every website. Yeah, it has 2 Metasploit modules, but all the modules are just to check if it exists. Well, that's a finding, which is also a critical finding because that vulnerability exists. We didn't exploit it yet. We could theoretically exploit it, but in a real test, we would contact the client and say, hey, you have remote code execution activated. You have a remote code execution vulnerability on your host, and make sure that they patch it as soon as possible, because that's a really critical one. You see the CVSS score, it's 10 because it's easy to exploit. Apparently, you don't need authentication. And where's the other part? We have authentication, and then we can do it over the network because it's remote code execution and it's low. Yeah, and we can control everything on the server once we get there. I think we will be running as the web service, so that's why actually it would be pretty cool to do it with Metasploit, because then we could have a Metapredator session and migrate to another service that has more permissions and try to privilege escalate that way. But it looks like we have to do it manually, so I'm gonna read up on this. We can continue here. So last time we stopped at this bug vulnerability thing that OpenWAS promised us that it would be a remote code execution. It would be possible, but nobody did it. So I don't think I'm gonna be the first one to do it live, to be honest. And usually in a penetration test, you don't have the time to develop your own exploits unless you're paid to pretend to be an APT, but I don't think so. So instead, we're gonna take a look at another target, which is the Elasticsearch server. I didn't quite jump on it last time because I was so preoccupied with the other bug, but this has the version number 111. And from what I know, the newest version is somewhere around 7 dot something. So this means this is incredibly old. In fact, we even see the build timestamp is 2014. So that's been 7 years. Sorry, I had to do some quick math in my head. So 7 years. That's a ton of time to have some exploits. And actually, if we search with searchploit, which is basically a command line version of the exploitdb, we see a couple of remote code execution vulnerabilities. So the question is, do we have something in Metasploit that can do that for us? So we wait for it to boot up, like sipping a bit of coffee. Goddamn, it's already done. And let's search for Elastic. Now, I don't know about you, but I think we have something in here. We have mvel RCE, and we have search GUI script, search GUI sandbox bypass. So actually, but let's just try it. Or actually, I did find one. Yeah, it should be the 2. And then let's show the options, because this one is really script kiddie friendly. So our L host, we're just gonna set, I mean, it's correct, but I want to show you that you can actually set your device. If you check your device, which is ETH0, and even on most systems that are Unix or Linux based. So we're just gonna use the default port. If you're gonna do that in a company that has real security in place, they're probably gonna catch this one. So you could, for example, set the L port to something like 42069. So this is the listener. We're launching a Metapredator reverse TCP shell. So it's gonna connect back to us on our IP and port. Now, obviously, we need to set the remote host, or else we wouldn't know how to what we should connect where we should even attack. Now let's make sure what format is it in. Sometimes it takes more than one, so it's our hosts, and let's set it. All right, clear. Let's make this a little bit bigger, clear, and show the options. So we have no proxy, we have the remote host set, the remote port is also correct. It's not using SSL. Yeah, it's not using SSL. Perfect for us, very bad for security or integrity at least. Yeah, we're gonna tag the slash, and you can find that out by just trying something like search, and if you get something back. And then when we try this search without anything in there, it will return us all the shards. Also, a very bad thing is that you can access the API. I think we could even go for stats. That's an invalid index. How did that one work again? Yeah, but we know that the API is there on the root, and temp should always be writable, and our payload is Metapredator, which is pretty nice. It's not only does it hide in the memory of a running process, so you don't see it as a defender necessarily. It also has a ton of options, which I've never used, but we can just run and take a look if it even works. And we have a Metapredator session. So one thing that we have to keep in mind is that this exploit may require manual cleanup of this thing on the target. So we're gonna just paste that as a note in here to do cleanup target Windows, and maybe even this one, and then we copy it, we go in here, and do we have the Windows host? Fantastic. Okay, so these are just our notes, which we will work on and make them look like a report, hopefully by the end of this series. But for now, let's take a look at what we've actually gathered. So in Metapredator, you can type help, and it will show you some things that you can do. And some of them are actually useful for a pen test, while others can be used as, let's say, scare tactic. So one thing you can do, which is mostly scare tactic, where is it? Is screen share. Or screenshot. We can take a screenshot. Does it actually work? And now we have a screenshot. It even saved it in the right directory. Isn't that fantastic? So we can use that to show basically, look, we have remote code execution. And we can even record the microphone. Yeah, pretty scary stuff you can do in here. I'm not sure why you should be allowed to do this. But I guess it doesn't even matter, because we can just type in shell, and now we're on the host. We can list the directories. Where are we at? Obviously WD. What's it in Windows? Now all my lacking skills are showing. So we're in this directory. I don't even have to type a comment for that. And we can, does it have a who am I? We are authority system. We already own this machine. So let's take a screen grab from that, highlight it super duper to show how dangerous it is. And then we can type RC with system. So system user is basically the I don't know how to say that in English, but in German we call that the bubble. So I'm now the bubble of this server. Perfect. And it only took us like 15 minutes into the stream and we own this server. So naturally what I want to do is copy as much as I can and paste it in here. And now we own the system. Perfect. We can exit. And I think there should be mimicuts in here. Is it command mimicuts? Come on, are you really gonna make me Google that? Okay, so we need to first load it. Load mimicuts. So I guess I didn't load this in, but basically we could use mimicuts, and with mimicuts we could dump NTLM hashes, and then we can start cracking them and getting passwords, or perform pass the hash attacks and connect to other machines. So now the fun thing is that we have owned this machine, our authority system, and can crack all the passwords of the users that logged into that machine. If we're lucky, that could even be as a domain admin, and I'm pretty sure we could do some serious damage in here. But for the purpose of this pen test, that's actually all we wanted. So the goal of this pen test was to get into the system and own the machines. Now we could create some persistent backdoors and stuff, but that's usually not our goal as a pen tester, especially not with the goal set to just get in. Now, this is also a very critical vulnerability, and as you know, if you find such a critical vulnerability, don't just go off like I did and do whatever you like, or even try to hack all the passwords. Instead, let me take off this jacket. Now I lost my train of thoughts. So if you have a critical vulnerability like this, you should immediately pick up your phone and call your clients and tell them, yo dude, I'm admin of your server, blah blah blah, and then ask them how you should proceed and not just hang up like a menace. But yeah, we hacked the machine. Now comes the most fun part, writing the report, in which we can basically describe how we hacked everything and some additional information. Yeah, so how do we go on about that? So we have 4 sections, or let's say 4 main sections, and one is the conclusion, which I moved up, and the reference of course, but I moved the conclusion up to the management summary or executive summary or whatever you want to call it. So the way you do this stuff, or the way I used to do it, is you usually start from the bottom. So you create basically the methodology part and explain how you hacked it, and then from that you take your findings and put them into a table and give them like ratings, remediations, affected hosts, explanations of the vulnerability and all that stuff. And then once you've done that, you can take a look at the table and critically say if the system is secure or not. So if you, for example, have all low findings in here, you can go and say the system is secure, but it has some minor flaws that can be easily fixed or that don't pose as big of a risk. Now, usually it's actually up to the company you're testing to decide what they do with your information. But we have this conclusion part in the executive summary, in which we can tell them, in conclusion, your system is good, or in conclusion, your system is bad. You should fix these 5 issues and then move on to the next 3. Blah blah blah. And so let's speed run this, guys. We're gonna speed run a pen testing report. That's the new title of the stream, speed running a pen testing report. Now we're gonna keep this pretty quick and concise. We're gonna speed run through this and make almost decent report. So don't take this report and say, wow, that's a really good example, because it won't be. We're gonna do it in like half an hour. All right, okay, so we have the Windows host, and we can type something like the Windows server. During the scanning and enumeration phase of the test, we were able to identify multiple running services on the Windows host after we broke into the Linux host. Normally we would write like something concise and maybe even an IP or the real name or what it is, but since they both have the same IP, wait, didn't I have a chapter for that? No, I didn't. Let's actually make sure the headings are correct. So methodology, list of hosts. Let's do it like this. It makes a little bit of more sense. And then here, Linux host. Yes, said this is not like a good example. You can type in Linux host. See, now we have a link to it. The following services were found. See full details in the attached nmap scan. SSH with weak credentials. Glassfish admin. You can type that in here. Admin interface exposed. Website which seem to be compromised at, and then we would type in like the domain, and this was the IIS vulnerability, IIS vulnerable to Elasticsearch with vulnerable. Okay, so now we have kind of an overview, and then we can type in a sentence explaining what we did. The host, the testers didn't further exploit or investigate most of the services except some force Glassfish. Thank you, Joey. Except for some brute force attacks against the admin interface of Glassfish. What did we do? Exploiting the CVE for the IIS service and exploiting the vulnerable version of Elasticsearch. The testers were able to run arbitrary code from their own machine, and then we make a link to the RCE we found. Report this one to a split view, so we can see it over here and edit it over here. Let me actually take this image and put it in here, and this one as well. We can even put that in an own thing, but I'm not sure we should. Thank you for following me. That boy got me owed. Damn. Alright, then let's take a look at it. After identifying the Elasticsearch service, the testers were able to visit the root web page, which gave information about the used version. Damn, it's hard to type and speak out and think at the same time. Using an already existing Metasploit module, the testers were able to exploit the service and run arbitrary code. See, let's actually do an appendix for this, and we can just copy this one, zack, all that info. How do we call that? Exploit RCE vulnerability on Elasticsearch. Then we paste this in. We go here and then say C report references this one. Fantastic. Since the testers were able to get a Metasploitable shell and elevate their privilege, I just think the service was running as admin. Get a Metasploitable shell as system. Alright, that's all we need to do for this part as for now. Yeah, I don't think we need to do something more. The Linux host hosted, that sounds whack. The Linux server hosted multiple websites which the vulnerability scanner deemed insecure. It found multiple outdated services and applications running, which could lead to a compromise of the target. In fact, the testers were able to exploit vulnerability in the FTP server that was running on the host to, let's do it, to upload a reverse shell and get access to the system. Type in C report. I can do it like this. A remote code execution via LFE. Fantastic. I hope I didn't lose you all in the meantime. We're almost done. After getting access to the server, the testers identified identified an outdated Linux kernel version with a known CVE, with a known privilege escalation vulnerability, and thus gained root access. With the root users, the testers were then able to create a new account, add it to the sudoers group, and have persistent administrative access. And if that doesn't scare anybody in the company, I don't know what will. This allowed them to pivot and attack the, let's say, internal Windows host. Now we can take this one and add it into the references, and we can clear that up. Report Linux host, isn't that correct? Yeah, reporting, the most fun part. Linux host privilege escalation, and here we type in report Linux host persistence. All right, the next part is the RC, so let's do a quick explanation. Actually, you know what, we can skip over this part just because it's getting boring for you guys. So now we would do the same over here and then attach all our scan results and everything in the reference section, or even as a separate document. We could reference from here to the reports and everything, show the important parts, but since I forgot to take pictures in the first couple of streams, the information is even lacking for this part, so we just wing it. Now another part which is probably too boring for a stream is that here we would have a table of all the machines with all their open ports, and yeah, so that we have basically a listing of all the open ports on all the machines that we found. We're gonna skip that because it's too boring. And here we also have a new part which is like a table of all the findings. Just imagine that we put all those findings that we explained down here and the others that we like sidelined into here and gave them the according rating. Just imagine. All right, so now let's go with the fun part, the executive summary. Scope of work, let's call it E Corp hired null security to conduct a penetration and external penetration test of their internet exposed web server. The goal was to see if an attacker could successfully infiltrate the company via the web server by compromising the web server and pivoting to an internal Windows host. That's perfect. The testers, now we have to write what we didn't do. The testers didn't perform an exhaustive test of the entire infrastructure, but rather followed the shortest path to the goal while noting down other findings they found on their way. That sounds perfect. Well, perfect is maybe a little bit exaggerated, but it sounds okay. Contract and legal stuff, client, E Corp, testers, def, null, timeline. What did we take? 1 day. Let's say it's 1 working day, right? I mean, we haven't spent 8 hours on this and hacked into the machine. Can we find like a cool screenshot that we can put in there? Cyber kilo chain. Let's go to images. Just take this one. So if this were a real pen test, you obviously wouldn't just paste a screenshot that you don't have permission to use, but since this is a mock one, let's just go with it. So let's get to the fun part, the conclusion. The testers were able to identify multiple critical and high rated vulnerabilities, with some of which allowed them to compromise the systems. In the end, the testers were able to infiltrate the web server and pivoting to one of the Windows hosts in the internal network. Def null security classifies the security of the security posture of the eCorp website as, how do you say that in English? Deep friendly helper, deep L. What's Mangelhaft? Poor. Damn. I didn't want to. Let's go with insufficient. That sounds nice, but also as insufficient, and would propose the following actions to remediate and vulnerabilities and improve the security. Now, the remediations, they come in multiple categories, which are people, process, and technology. So people would be something like train your employees on how to not get phished. Process would be something like have a regular patch cycle every month, every week or whatever. And technology would be maybe to install a WAF in front of a web server. Or yeah, some things, sometimes they overlap. Yeah, but let's actually write down what they should do. First of all, identify if the set up a patching management work process. This will make sure that all your systems and applications are up to date and have the latest security patches. So what could they do next? Perform system hardening. Close unused ports and services on the exposed machines and set up firewall rules to prevent access to those from the outside. Because I remember they had some open ports on their Linux host which shouldn't be open. So just close them. This will vastly reduce the attack vectors for adversaries. Ah, perfect. And then let's add something else. So they should do patching. If they patch their stuff, we would have never found a way in. Unless their passwords, they have default passwords and stuff. Password policy. Set up a password complexity requirement policy for all users to ensure their passwords are hard to crack. Let's add another sentence just to scare off. This could, not would. This could allow an attacker to infiltrate the company network, steal data, install ransomware, and perform other criminal activities without being detected. You know, you gotta scare the managers a little bit and tell them, hey, if you don't fix that stuff, somebody's gonna come in, set up a ransomware, and you will have to pay money. Activities which could result in big financial reputational damage? Question mark? Yeah, perfect. So now we have our mock pen test ready and we can export it to PDF. It, however, will look like shit because it's just the default thing, I guess. Doesn't look that great from Obsidian. Damn, that's big. Alright, so that's our report, executive summary, scope of work. eCorp hired DevNull Security to conduct an external penetration test of their internet exposed web server. The goal was to see if an attacker could successfully infiltrate the company via the web server. Example, by compromising the web server and pivoting to an internal Windows host. The testers didn't perform an exhaustive test of the entire infrastructure, but rather followed the shortest path to the goal while noting down other findings they found on their way. Here we should probably add a lot of other stuff. Yeah, the write-up is done, we're just going over it again. Used methodology, yeah. Here's just a picture, obviously you would create your own stuff and use a right picture. Then the conclusion. The testers were able to identify multiple critical and high-rated vulnerabilities, some of which allowed them to compromise the systems. In the end, the testers were able to infiltrate the web server and pivoting to one of the Windows hosting an internal network. This could allow an attacker to infiltrate the company network, steal data, install ransomware, and perform other criminal activities, which could result in big financials and reputational damage. Dev Null Security classifies the security posture of the eCorp website as insufficient and would propose the following actions to remediate the vulnerabilities and improve the security. 1. Set up a patching management process. This will make sure that all your systems and applications are up to date and have the latest security patches. 2. Perform system hardening. Close unused ports and services on the exposed machines and set up firewall rules to prevent access to those from the outside. This will vastly reduce the attack vectors for adversaries. 3. Set up and enforce a password policy. Force admins to change default credentials of services after they set up, and set up a password complexity requirement policy for all users to ensure their passwords are hard to crack. Then we have a list of findings and everything explained. Everything that we found. Yeah, then we have some attachments, which is basically just code. So basically all that people are gonna read is this part, and then they hand it to the attackers and admins and devs and give them this part, the next part. And in the conclusion is also a great place to like upsell your client. Here, for example, it would be good to, and then after that they can do something like we did again to make sure that everything got patched. Whew. Damn, that was much work. But yeah, so this report is nowhere near something that you could give to a client, because obviously A, it looks bad, B, it's missing a lot of pieces, but it's just a mock penetration test to show you a little bit how it could look like. Maybe that's the first pre-draft, if even, but obviously I would never hand out that to a client, and I never did, because it's just, I mean, the first part is kind of okay, but it lacks some polish. Yeah, let's call it that. It lacks some polish. It's like Cyberpunk 2077. It's a good game, but it lacks like polish, even though it's coming from a Polish company. The irony!